Welcome back to the Ag Bowl Podcast. Today we have a special guest. Every guest is special, but this one's really special. Bridgette Readel. Bridgette, welcome to the Ag Bowl Podcast.
Howdy, Tommy.
I am having the hardest time saying your last name.
That's okay. It happens a lot. I've had some other folks that then just started doing it on purpose after they got it wrong.
Excellent. You came down here how long ago? Year and a half ago?
Boy, it's been a while. You were just getting this studio operational, and I got a chance to do really the look behind the curtain and see what it was going to be.
Well, we're still working on it.
It's coming along fabulously. I think it looks great.
What to wear, light, the colors. I put some blue lights behind us. Got a little patriotic with a flag.
Well, this is such a fun setup because you've got the cameras, you've got all this stuff set up, you got the ticker back there.
They don't see that, though.
Oh, that's okay.
That ticker's just a welcome for you. Because we think it'd be too much of a distraction if they were just looking at the ticker instead of looking at you.
It might be.
Yeah. So I have a whole list of questions, but this can go any way you want.
Every conversation we have ever had has gone a million different directions.
ADHD helps that
It's totally
tremendously. Well, good. I'm going to look over here. Sound looks good. We're rolling. Because, every once in a while you look and you're like, I would say we filmed something a few weeks ago and I was like, why am I so loud? And someone else isn't. And I should have just moved the lever. But I don't want to not look. I also look in the wrong camera sometimes. And there's all types of... we were going to have a heck of a blooper reel for the first year. So I just got back today from the North Dakota Bankers Association. I think I watched you speak there about 3-4 years ago, before COVID.
Well, yeah, before COVID, and then again here just recently. I think we did that again last fall. We were out there.
Okay. Yeah. I don't know if I made that one, but I was very impressed. And I still don't know what you do. You do so many things and you wear so many hats and everyone seems to know you. I don't know if that's because social media or anything else, but I wrote on my list for question number 1, how did you develop your love for agriculture? But before we do that,
okay,
where are you from? Mm-hmm. And go from there.
So originally, I grew up in Wishick, North Dakota. So I am from behind the Iron Curtain. That's where all the German Russians, not all, but a majority of the German Russians immigrated from when they came here in the 1880s to settle what was then Dakota Territory. And that's my home area. Now, after having gone to North Dakota State University, I moved to Fargo, went to school, spent a short duration in Hillsboro, got married, moved to Hunter. So I have a tendency to stay in very small towns, much like here in Mayville, where you're studying.
Oh, Mayville's a big town.
In comparison to most towns in North Dakota, they have a stoplight.
Well, we do, but now they just make it flash. So we're going through changes. Normally, when I open up the episode, I forgot to say it, but this episode is filmed in beautiful downtown Mayville, North Dakota.
And it is beautiful. The Mayville, or the Trail County Museum, is right out the back door. It's very cool.
Yeah, there's a lot of history here.
Very.
Yeah, interesting. So your love for ag, all types of things. We could talk about this for an hour. The FFA.
Mm-hmm. So as a kid who grew up farming, and apparently my parents were bad at decisions, so that's how I got to do all the things I do. They had beef cattle, they had dairy, they also had grain on the acre. So we did all of those things. But probably the reason I do the most that I do with agriculture, when I was in high school, I had a guy I was dating who was in FFA and frequently would say, you're never going to be able to do all the things that I did in crop judging. And if you want to see me really go after it, you challenge me. So I did. And then I beat all the things that he did. And I felt much better about it.
But then you got rid of him.
Pretty much. I'm slightly competitive.
I like that. Yeah. Well, no good story starts with we were having a salad, right?
That is exactly the case. Yes. We never start
I love
that
it.
way.
And so this journey, when I first met you, I wasn't sure 5 years ago what you were doing.
So 5 years ago was easy. I worked at the time for Corteva Agriscience, crop protection, technical agronomist is the word I would use. I covered a couple different states, and my job was to back up the sales team when it came to new products, labels, training, and educating our customers. Prior to that, I'd had a sales territory for about 16 years, selling crop protection in East Central North Dakota. Then we get to about April of 2022. That was when I decided, after 25 years with Corteva, it was time to do something different. Some of the dominoes, if you will, fell into place that allow me to still work part-time for Corteva, specifically to one product, doing training and education. I half-time. I am an ag director now for WDAY Radio and the Flag Family Media. And then I started my own LLC where I do training, education, public speaking, etc., primarily in agronomy. And I partnered with two other guys, and we formed the Ag Mafia. And so Lilac Lane rolls into the Ag Mafia, where we just have a bigger scope of things that we do for training, education, social media, etc., in primarily agronomy.
That's a lot of stuff. What about from high school to there?
Oh, once I got out of high school, and FFA was a huge part of my high school career. I had the opportunity to serve as a state officer for North Dakota's FFA Association. And as a freshman entering North Dakota State University, I wasn't really sure what I was going to do. I thought I was going to major in ag economics and be as cool as Tommy Grisafi.
Well, I didn't know.
And then I sat in my first couple of ag economics classes and realized, wow, I hate math. I can't do this. So I jumped the ship and went on over to ag education and graduated as an ag ed teacher / extension agent. But because I think only one time in my life I've ever had a job description that was preset, what I did was needing to have that extension internship for that portion of my major. I didn't just want to go work at a county agent's office. I went to who was at the time North Dakota's weed extension specialist and said, how would you like an intern? He said, I don't know. I've never had one. What do I do with you? So we figured that out. And he found a way to get me paid for that summer. Then I student taught. And while I was student teaching, my internships at North Dakota State, Central Crop Consultants, and also having been an intern for what at the time was Dow AgriSciences, all kind of added up. And Dow AgriSciences called and said, how would you like to work for us full time? And I said, let me get this straight. Teacher salary as a beginning teacher versus a beginning sales rep salary, and the benefits that go with being a sales rep. Yeah, again, I'm not good at math, but I got that one right.
And this was 25 years ago?
Yeah, it was.
And when you came down here a year ago, you said there's going to be some changes.
Yeah, there were.
And I didn't know which way you were going.
Yeah, so now I still get to work in the crop protection industry for Corteva, which was when the merger of Corteva happened, that was Dow AgriSciences and DuPont. I still get to work in what's kind of a newfound interest, and that would be media. But social media has been a tremendous amount of fun, and that's where you and I have connected quite a bit too.
Yeah, I was kind of watching, and I was like, I'm not sure what she does. And I'd ask people who know you, and they're like, oh, yeah, we know her from Corteva.
Yeah.
Fascinating. And you are wonderful at telling stories about North Dakota. What is that thing I watch on Facebook on Fun Fact Friday?
Farm Fact Friday.
Oh, that was close.
So
Farm Fact
that
Friday.
actually started with two Instagram accounts out of California, and they wanted folks to post the fun facts about their state's agriculture. And I started that, and then it evolved into all sorts of North Dakota history and little stories that come from different places in this state. And I've often thought, I maybe wouldn't need to do Farm Fact Friday. And then I get folks to respond on Facebook and Instagram and say, oh, don't stop. This has been great. These are things I didn't know, and I enjoy hearing.
How about this? How long have you been doing Farm Fact Friday?
Oh, I know for sure it's been 2 years. It might be close to 3 now.
Let's tell the craziest Farm Fact Friday story where you're like, you're not going to believe this one.
I think one of the most fun ones for me was right around New Salem, North Dakota. There was a homesteader who came out there, and he kept plowing the earth and wanting to plant a crop. And the Native Americans would drive by or ride by on their horses and say, wrong side up, because they'd look at the plow furrow where he'd flipped over the ground, and they said, well, that's not right. Wrong side up. And finally he realized, yeah, this is more pasture than it is cropland. So he put the ground back in place, started raising cows, and he did much better. In fact, he had one of the first registered Holstein herds in the state of North Dakota and went on to be very influential in the dairy industry.
And where do you get all these tidbits?
Anywhere. I have picked up books. In fact, during the 1930s, during the Great Depression, there were so many different reasons that FDR was trying to put people back to work, including writers and historians. Every state had a book written about them that was a guidebook to traveling in that state, like local tourism. I found it online, eBay or Alibris or somewhere, and it has all these little stories about towns in North Dakota. I find newspaper clippings that I've read, and I thought that's a great story, and somehow it relates back. There are books about North Dakota-based entrepreneurs, those who started the state mill. A lot of tractors and equipment have come through North Dakota. If you think about Steiger, Bobcat, Concord, etc., and I just get to tell their story.
I think that's really awesome.
It's fantastic to find those things.
If someone's watching this or listening to this, and this podcast is available both video and audio, I really botched up the intro. I usually say all that, but you know what? We'll just get it right now.
You slide that right on in there when someone's not
Absolutely.
expecting it.
What someone who's never been in the state of North Dakota, which we're considered a flyover state, how would you describe it?
So the best kept secret about North Dakota is how pretty it really is. People think, well, I've got to go to Minnesota or the Northeast and look at all the trees and see the leaves turning in the fall. We're a different kind of pretty. And that has to do with so much of the agriculture that you see out here, the 4 different, very different seasons. Seeing not only production ag like corn and soybeans like you would in Iowa, but blooming sunflowers, blooming flax, canola, the livestock that you see out on pasture.
Honey.
We are number 1 in honey production.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big
We got
part
some
of what
things.
we
So I just wrote down on my little notes. I was told we grow over 60 crops over here.
Absolutely, we do. I would believe that.
And if we go to Iowa, which we were just there a few weeks ago at the Farm Progress, you were at one of those cool people socials, and I was trying to get your autograph or something. It was awkward, but they grow in Iowa.
Corn and soybeans.
Yeah, sometimes they grow soybeans and corn,
And occasionally somebody throws in wheat only because they need that as a rotation of some sort.
or they have horses.
Probably.
And there's we have a little wheat where I live in Indiana, but I spend a lot of time driving back and forth now to Iowa because I have a daughter in school there, and you see corn, you see wheat, you see corn, you see wheat, and you see a lot of hogs.
But here, having had a territory as a sales rep for so long, I have been in fields that are mint, lentils, garbanzo beans, all sorts of dry beans that we raise up here. In fact, the Great Northern bean or the Kennelly bean was developed for this region, and we're very good at raising it. So just the variety of things that we see up here, I think, contribute to the overall excitement and beauty of what comes in this state.
What about wheat? Do you know a lot about wheat?
I love wheat. That's my favorite crop, actually.
North Dakota mill celebrating their 100th anniversary in a couple of days.
Yes, they are.
Kind of a big. You'll probably be up there covering the story.
I should be, but I can't
Yeah.
tell that I am for sure.
Okay.
I love the fact that North Dakota is the home of the Bonanza Farm. This area is built on wheat production. That's what we do best. And we've done it for well over 100 years, probably pushing about 140 now.
Wheat's been around a lot longer, but the mill, right?
Yes.
In which most people don't understand why we have a state-owned mill in a state-owned bank.
And we're the only state to do that.
Would you like to talk about either of those?
We can. And I think, the state mill, that developed out of the need to keep more revenue in North Dakota rather than shipping all the wheat down to Minneapolis where it was being milled. And as a state, they wanted to keep some dollars here. And when you think about the names that are associated with having started that mill, they're names like Amadon, which is a town in North Dakota. He was part of that operation. Many of the names that were there were very prominent North Dakotans at the time, and they really grew that entrepreneurship.
So we're going in I don't know how long the Bank of North Dakota has been around.
Probably around the same amount of time.
Okay.
Yeah, and the Bank of North Dakota is still extremely successful as a bank. It's not something that's been bought out or privatized.
Yep. And I was given a name of someone to have to the podcast from Bank of North Dakota, and maybe someone I can call it the North Dakota Mill, and I'm sure they're going to have a busy couple weeks or months, but when things settle down, we'll celebrate the whole year, right? Like your birthday week, birthday month, birthday year, 100-year anniversary.
That's right.
I wrote a question down that's kind of it's an odd one, but what are your strengths? What are your weaknesses?
So I like to do weaknesses first. Let's get those right out of the way. Okay. I talk too much, which can be a strength as well. I'm terrible at cooking a meatloaf, but I make really great other foods. And I think as a weakness, I have a very hard time saying no. I have had to learn that I can't take on every project, but I really want to, because we only have so long in this lifetime. I want to do it all. I want to look back and say, I tried that or I did that. And I have had many good firsts because of that inability to say no. I'm part of a group of women that organized a women's fraternity at North Dakota State University.
Was that one of its first ever?
It was the first women's fraternity there, primarily focused in agriculture. So no doubt we had service and philanthropy as a big part of what we did. But those connections to ag, I look for them in any way that I can.
That's interesting. So you're going full throttle.
I can say I always have. My dad made the mistake of saying, at some point in my young life, you can be anything you want to be. Well, he maybe should have narrowed that down.
When you were talking about where you grew up, siblings, brothers, sisters?
Oh, yeah. I'm the oldest of four. I have two brothers who still farm, and with their wives and their children. I have a sister who's an insurance agent, also involved in agriculture. She and her husband raise cattle and sheep. And then at a point when my dad remarried after my parents were divorced, we brought in two more siblings. So we're kind of like the Brady Bunch, 3 and 3. But I'm still the oldest of the whole group.
Oh, I like that. That's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And life as adult. Married?
Yep. My husband is in agriculture. He spent 25 years in retail, running a retail agronomy center with both seed, chem, and fertilizer. Now he is a seed rep for Dairyland Seed. We have 2 adult children. They're mostly off the payroll. Look forward to that day. It's coming, Tommy, I swear. And so we have a son and daughter-in-law in Moorhead, and our daughter lives in Oklahoma City. So that gives me a place to go when I decide I need to get out of state for a while.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wrote, how many Bridgettes are there is a question. How many Bridgettes are there?
Depends how you spell it.
Okay.
Apparently I have the long version because I have the extra TE at the end. But I probably only know about 3 others. There's not very many.
No?
And we're constantly mistaken for Brenda's and other various names. For some reason, I get Gretchen a lot.
That's close enough, right?
Right. That's similar. No, not even close.
Explain to people who aren't from here how we have fun. I travel back and forth, but how do we have fun when it's cold? Because people think like this is where people go to serve time, like in Siberia.
Right, like in Siberia.
There's a concert in town tonight.
There is, up in Grand Forks. I think we are very good at organizing our own fun, and even in the winter months. So no doubt there's ice fishing, and it's not like Wisconsin where you sit on a bucket.
We'll talk more about that later.
Good. It's not like you sit on a bucket outside in the cold weather. Everybody's got their ice house that they're in. But additionally, in the little town where I live in Hunter, every winter we organize winter golf.
How's that work?
You have a 4-man team for your scramble.
Or women.
Oh, absolutely.
Men.
4-person.
There we go.
Yes. And you can have 3 pieces of sporting goods equipment of your choice. We're talking baseball bats, tennis rackets, golf clubs. Your golf cart is probably your snowmobile or your side-by-side or your 4-wheeler. And we play a 18-hole course. It's actually 9 holes, but you play it twice on generally it's like Super Bowl weekend. And we'll do that on Saturday with the Super Bowl on Sunday.
That's interesting.
We will make our own fun in any way that we can.
Mm-hmm. You and I could be the only 2 people not at Chris Stapleton tonight.
Might be.
That's all right. We're
okay.
doing this. We have time.
I am all right with I don't have to do the same thing everybody else does. Besides, the parking will be terrible. I don't need to deal with that.
A lot of people get a few minutes to say what they want to say, and thanks for stopping in.
Sure.
This is different. We can just talk. We could.
This
you
is
want to
somewhat
cough? You want
similar
to? I itch my nose. We could do whatever.
This is somewhat similar to a regular conversation you and I would have.
Okay. We have a wonderful sponsor.
Okay.
Probably something that could stop you from coughing. Do you like popcorn?
I like Colorado Jack Pop.
Colorado Jack Popcorn, our sponsor of the show. You know what else we do on these shows? We give away stuff to see if people are watching. Hence, Flags for Farmers.
Which is highly appropriate because of harvest and upcoming Veterans Day.
Yeah. So what we do is if someone's watching the show within the first few weeks of its release, if they email us at flags, Flags, at agbull.com, we'll send them a flag. And the flags were donated by various banks and other people in the area. And, it's a really great thing.
I don't know how that happened.
That's okay.
Sometimes things get caught up in your throat.
Yeah. Would you like some water?
I still have tea, so I should be good.
All
I just
right.
need liquid.
Well,
Keep going.
We'll get you fixed.
That's right.
We'll,
Talk about the flags.
Has this ever happened to you when you're doing your radio show?
Oh, it has. And then but I can't reach the mute button from over here to shut myself off.
I should have been muting you while you cough. Well, to show people that this is real and that we're not messing around,
No, not at all.
you've coughed yourself to tears.
I know, but I'll be fine.
All right.
It's that genuine, Tommy. Tears.
I love it. I love it. Speaking of tears, you do so many different things. Tell me about Agronomy on Ice.
Okay, so back to the social media. When I started out on Twitter, I had no idea that you would gain an audience just by speaking what you think. I am who I am in real life as I am on Twitter. Well, through that, I knew some guys in real life. Jason Hansen is one of them.
Mm-hmm.
He's my partner in Egg Mafia. And Jason had this great brainchild. And he said, I want to do something in the winter months that combines my love of ice fishing, tailgating, and talking farming. And he said, you've got a social media following. How about we use your media following to invite people to what we're going to call Agronomy on Ice? I said, that would be a great idea. Let's do it. And we started doing that. This will be our 5th year in 2023. And we started, so instead of going to a trade show, you set up your ice house on the ice. And that's your booth. And people can come in and visit just like they would at a booth at Farm Progress or Big Iron. And they have that opportunity to talk with you about, is that a product that you sell? Is that a technique that you do on your farm? Whatever you'd like it to be. Most everyone's got holes drilled in the floor, so you can have a good time and drop a line if you'd like. People in North Dakota likes to share. They like to share their food, their drink. And so when you stop by to visit about farming and maybe drop a line in the hole, you're going to get a chance to sample whatever wonderful cuisine might be going on in their fish house.
And your specialty is?
I make caramel rolls in the morning because usually there's people coming on the ice about 7:30. So we put on the coffee pot and I bring caramel rolls.
They are wonderful.
Well, thank you. It's a good time.
Yeah, it's usually one of the first campers.
We're like the point where everything funnels from. And you know, this year's we get into 23, we'll have, like we did last year, streets and alleyways. So you can kind of find a little more organization and find the house you want to go through. And we really want people to make sure that they put up their signs. You know, if you're going to set your house down, make sure you have a flag or something on your house that says who you are and what you're doing. Because you want people to stop by and visit. That's the whole point of it. And then we have some fun side-like things. Like last year, we had our own specialty beer for Agronomy on Ice, and that was done by Laughing Sun Brewery out of Bismarck. It was called Lutefisk Lager. There was no lutefisk involved, I can tell you. But that makes it just that much more fun for folks who are attending. We did several prize giveaways. We had several contests on the side. We did a fishing derby the day prior. All good things.
You auctioned off, we bought tickets for a trailer.
We gave away a fish house. Yep. That was sold. And then there was also a vintage clothing. So some guys went into their closets and brought out way old seed company clothing, etc. And we gave a bunch of that away too.
And then also some of the money went to?
All the money went back to
the university?
The Precision Ag program out of Devil's Lake. That would be Lake Region State College.
I think you'd be surprised, probably not because you travel around the country, but people from all over are seeing this, and it's just building and building.
It's been great fun. And it's a social media boon because that's the only way we advertise. We're not putting it on the radio. We're not looking to rent billboards or anything like that. It's truly grown by word of mouth. And when you have people who specifically drive to North Dakota the first part of February from Iowa, Nebraska, other states, they're pretty dedicated to get here.
Yeah. How many states do you think we had last year?
Oh, I know for sure. We had about 15 because we tallied them up at the end of the night.
Did we have Canada last year or they were still doing that?
No, Canada was still closed, but we will see a big difference in that coming into 23. We will have a lot more people coming down.
I know they want to go to that.
Absolutely.
Did we go over the negative part of social media?
We can. And so negativity. I've had very few instances.
That's when you start coughing.
Yeah.
Brought back such emotional things.
Oh, God.
You were my first guest to cry on set.
Oh, perfect.
For good reasons.
Good reasons.
That you were choking.
Weepy.
It's good, though.
Got to be the first for everything.
Absolutely.
think when it comes to negativity for social media, it's, first of all, you have to have thick skin. You don't get into this and just expect nobody's ever going to talk negatively to you. So you got to have that, number one. Two, just this summer, I was in a conversation with someone about dairy, and the vegans are militantly organized. They have a way that they want to attack you, and I had one guy who wanted to do that, and I just muted the conversation, because the longer you try to interact with that, the more they're just going to feed off of it, and then it continues to get views. Well, I'm not going to give them the audience, so I blocked it and just shut it down.
It just goes away.
And I saw that I got added to a list, something about...
Oh, yeah, you
Yeah, some people
you talked about this on one of your spaces.
Yep, I was supposed to be... I was added to this list where they told me that I was blocked because someone who abused animals.
Yes, and that hurt your feelings.
A little bit, but I'm like...
But it's not true.
It's not even close to being true. I mean, I understand how well livestock producers take care of their animals. We did growing up.
Mm-hmm.
So I knew that wasn't true. And, it's from some dude with like 15 followers. Well, I don't need to listen to that. It doesn't make any sense. The one that I have fought back hardest about was, this happened on Instagram. I had a guy send a private message, and it was highly inappropriate photograph.
Mm-hmm.
And I made fun of it on Twitter. I did.
How'd that work out?
A couple other ladies that I know jumped on there, and we made fun of it. Several.
Did people know who it was, or?
Nope. And it's not someone that would be prominently known. Just a random dude.
Yeah.
And several of us ladies make fun of it. That wasn't even the problem. The problem was one of those gals works for a large corporation, and a high-level manager saw her making fun of it and said, that's really not a good image. We probably shouldn't say things like that. And her response to him in person was, so you're telling me I should keep my mouth shut about sexual harassment?
Mm-hmm. How'd that go over?
Oh, let's just say that those of us got back on the bandwagon, and we weren't really nice to him. Because every corporation comes out with if you see something, say something. But then you're not supposed to do it on social media in case it looks bad. Oh, I don't think so, pal. We're going to have to do that in every platform, not just one.
So not special rules for special people type of deal?
No.
Right.
Absolutely not.
So you're talking left, walking right.
Can't do that.
No, we don't like that.
So again, what you see, whether I'm online or in person, it's the same one. I don't change that persona.
I want to ask you, when you travel, like you travel far, did you drive to Iowa?
Yep.
Did you listen to podcasts, or how do you?
I do.
How do you entertain yourself when you're driving?
Podcasts are my favorite. Lots of folks call, so hands free. You can talk to them. If I have time, XM Radio has an old. I can't remember the number on it, but it's all the old radio shows that get replayed.
Okay.
And it's theater of the mind. And I like that. I like listening to those old dramas and comedy shows. They're entertaining. I mean, you listen to Dragnet sometime. That's great fun. But I like the podcast, especially because it's people that I know that I like to listen to and hear their background and their stories. And I always learn something.
It's interesting. The last guest I had on, who's fascinating working with agriculture, but never listened to any agriculture podcasts. He's like, I listen to murder podcasts. I listen to this. And the story went off on a tangent, but in a good way. It was really great because we need to talk about a lot of different things besides agriculture. But there's so many things out there.
Yes. Look, I love to read, but I don't always have time to read. And I certainly can't do it when I'm hauling down the highway at 85. So a podcast is a way for me to hear and listen and connect with some of those people. I like that part.
Of all the things you're involved with, allegedly, what are your plans for the next, pretty soon, half century?
So since I'm almost to the half century mark, it's time to start thinking about that. But I know that any day all of this could change. Any day maybe I'm not going to be on radio anymore. Maybe I'm not going to be doing the things I do with social media. So I'm going to live it up and enjoy it as much as I can right now. Down the road, I'm pretty sure you might find me having my own greenhouse, spending more time in my garden, reading more books. But for right now, I enjoy the travel, the networking with people. That's probably my favorite part, is getting to visit with folks whenever I get the chance. I don't turn down those opportunities right now.
Remember those caramels we ate in Iowa?
They're so good.
Yeah, right. They're good for coffee, I heard. Just kidding. Tell us about your garden.
I have a fairly large garden.
What's large? Like football field, basketball court?
Not quite. Let's go with like probably 30 by 20.
Okay, which
So-
you could produce an incredible amount of food on that. I don't think people realize.
Right. We do. And my husband's in charge of production because he's the one who makes sure that the rows are straight and the fence is up to keep the deer out and everything gets watered the way it's supposed to. And I weed it with him and then just hope things grow. I'm probably not the right person to be in charge of fertility and all that. That's really his mindset. I'm on the processing end. So when the kabillion tomatoes come out of there that he grew this summer, I have to turn them into spaghetti sauce and salsa and everything else. And you're right. You can grow an awful lot of food out of a small plot. And we share it so much with neighbors.
That's nice.
We just enjoy that part of it. Anybody need an extra zucchini? Got you covered.
You talked about social media a little bit. How do people get a hold of you on social media?
Because I am not creative and didn't understand social media when I started, everything's under my name. So whether it's Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, I just use Bridgette Readel. When we go to Twitter, I use @BMReadel.
Okay. And if you knew what you know now, how would you have done it?
Oh, I might have found something fun and maybe a little bit more descriptive to be my Twitter handle. But frankly, I haven't changed my name when I'm on radio. I haven't changed my name on social media. People have known me as Bridgette Readel for 20 plus years now. It'd be silly if I had something different, I guess. I'm not hiding who I am.
I love it. I love it. Well, it's kind of running out of things but as you talk more and more, ask me a question.
So
Yes.
I know a little bit of your backstory because of some of the podcasts that I have heard you do with other people as well. But I think that there's such a gap in being a trader and then being a media mogul. How do you bridge that gap? How did you decide that these are the two things I should do with my free time?
Well, that's a great question. Thank you for asking. I noticed a need, and I noticed legendary people were moving on and retiring. I'm passionate about agriculture. I love agriculture. I love the people. I'm very comfortable being around agriculture. And I noticed that media was changing, especially during COVID. So during COVID, I started to listen to a lot more podcasts to get off of, I don't want to listen to this network, that network, the election, through that over. So it was the election first, right? After the election and COVID, the election, it's all a big blur. It's just like, I just want to get off. So I started listening to podcasts that some have advertisements, maybe some guys pushing popcorn.
Really good popcorn.
Colorado Jack.
Thank you, Brian.
Yeah. And the shout out to those guys and gals. They're sending little bite-sized bags, little ones, but they didn't make it. And sometimes the mail's a little slow up here.
It's okay if you eat that whole bag. I
Yeah,
won't tell
well.
anybody. I won't.
So I was listening to podcast, and I really found some ones I liked. Obviously, Rob Sharkey and his wife, the Farm for Profit guys.
Yeah.
And what happened was I would get on the plane in Chicago, and I'd download a Farm for Profit podcast. And I learned so much about all these people and unique stories. And I started thinking that the world could use 100 more of these in agriculture. Just our very little...
So much out there.
Right. 99% of Americans really aren't involved in agriculture. 1%, maybe more, is involved, but 1% of America's farmers, and 100% of us need them every day, all day, for everything. North Dakota bankers wanted to do a virtual North Dakota bankers show.
Yep.
And I was sitting in North Dakota, and I booked a flight to go back home and be in my studio because I was starting to feel comfortable then. And I looked at my beautiful bride, Gina, and I said, I'm going to do everything I did at home, but twice as good in Mayville, North Dakota. And I started asking people like you, if I build it, will they come? Will people show up to Mayville, North Dakota to record a podcast?
And they have every time.
Yeah, I mean, the hardest thing is just coordinating my schedule that I do have 2-day jobs, obviously managing risk for people and trading. So our young associate there through the Zoom asked, "Can you film at 10 in the morning?" I'm like, "Not as long as Korea's throwing bombs over Japan and I hear there's a war." I'm like, "No, I have to. We all got to get in sync." So it's hard to do something like this. Much harder than I thought.
But the reality is that we can. Coming into media the way I have now, being on radio every day, 85% of the time I am not in a studio. I'm in my office at my house. I'm in my pickup at the side of a road. But that actually makes it a little bit more fun for people to guess. Where do you think Tommy Grisafi is today? Where do you think he's going to be at recording?
But I'm most comfortable in these studios, and it's because the lights, the sound. Obviously, when you Google or research what's important in a podcast, obviously, number one, the content.
Yes.
But 1, 2 / would be the quality of the sound. So you could have the best content in the world and sound like you filmed it in a dumpster, and they're going to disconnect within 30 seconds.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you like the video aspect of it. For a lot of podcasters, it's just the audio quality, and they're happy with that. But you have taken it to the next level and done extremely well.
And I don't know why. And I really, honestly, I called a dear friend on the way here today, and I go, "What am I doing? What am I doing?" And he's like, "Just keep going. Just keep." It's like a pushing through it. So
yeah.
When I was young and skinny, I ran a lot of marathons. And always around mile 20, it hurts like heck. And if you could just get through that, before you know it, you're got a metal towel thing wrapped around you, and you're eating bananas and muffins, and you just got to finish one step at a time. And I was telling a prior guest, "Boy, I am not comfortable doing this, but I keep watching, getting, I don't want to say better, but you're getting more comfortable in your shoes." And
But
it's awkward.
Okay, but that makes you more real. That little bit of uncomfortability makes you a little bit more real to those who are listening and watching. And the more comfortable you get, the better you are feeling very real with them. There's nothing wrong with that.
Right. And although I asked you, because I was struggling a little bit, ask me a question, the beauty of this, and thank you for doing that, the beauty of this is I feel that North Dakota is one of the most overlooked states as far as its story.
Yeah.
And that people come up, cover a story, and we do have people up here who do a wonderful job covering stories, but there's way more people and way more unique stories in agriculture. So far on my podcast, I've never had like a plain corn and bean farmer on.
Well, and also you're focusing on the positivity. Most of the time when the limelight's on North Dakota, it's for something negative. Giant blizzard, terrible flood, major drought, for all the bad headlines. But you talk about it in a positive way. That's exciting.
Right. And I heard from someone that really the story's not, I know it's not. It's not about me. It's about you. But as we're going back and forth on these mics, we can gently, you're supposed to let people know a little bit about yourself.
Absolutely.
And I just watch and listen to things. And one of the things that most people don't know on these podcasts is that there's shows I'm not on, I'll never be on, and I'll never be asked to go on. And ultimately, and although this is going to sound arrogant and boys, you have a cavalier attitude, I realize that if you can get your own platform and buy your own stuff and then hit send on YouTube and Buzzsprout and Apple, that you don't need to be invited on those shows.
You can tell your story the way you'd like.
Right. But then slowly, I'm constantly inviting people that, like, well, you don't see eye to eye with that person. You should have them on the show and get to know them better. So each guest who comes into the studio, because a friend of mine had asked, well, what's the end game with this? I go, I can't tell you that, but I can tell you who I'm interviewing today, and I'll tell you how I think it's going to go.
Yeah.
And I know her circle of friends and her social media, and it's kind of like, who have you kissed? That if you sit down with someone, record something for an hour, I'm going to know you a lot better today than... And people are going to know you a lot better today than they did before. And then you kiss that person who kissed this person, and then it starts going.
Sure.
So inadvertently, not on purpose, but I'm using your social media to promote you, which will inadvertently promote me.
But absolutely. And that's what we've always done through networking, through business cards. Now we're just doing it in a virtual realm.
Yeah, in your business card, it's not even real anymore. It's a little.
Looks like a credit card, and all you got to do is scan it.
I was thinking the other day, I opened my drawer. I live in downtown Fargo, and I opened the drawer, I had 15 paper cards from 15 really cool people I got to get back to. And I don't know if I ever will, but your card, you just scan it, and that's the difference. It's in there.
It's in your phone.
I had your name misspelled, and you're like, here, this will fix it all. And all your social media. So technology, I've always liked technology, and it just kind of hit me. If in Mayville, we're blessed to have fiber through Midco. Big thanks to Midco, not a sponsor yet, but you will be someday.
They should.
Yeah, big shout out to Midco. We sure could use a discount on our internet. No, the internet's actually affordable. It's no problem. But with internet, you could go anywhere, which obviously I always wanted to start working from Florida, and those storms the other day kind of changed my mind, because one of the benefits of North Dakota is no hurricanes.
Nope.
What else?
Few tornadoes. No, nothing's trying to kill you. We don't have venomous snakes, especially on this side of the state. There might be a few rattlers to the west.
Not many.
Not really. I think there's only been a couple measurable ones.
Just gets a little cold in the winter.
You know what? We don't make you stand outside. You can come in, and it's nice and warm in here.
Yeah.
And you can have auto start on your vehicle.
That's pretty true. So I'm going to flip it. Now I'm getting back in the rhythm.
Sure.
And our great producer out there is like, about damn time, kids. You two were a wreck in the beginning, between Coffer Sally over here and me looking like, hey, I'm not sure why you're in media, but you're really good at it. And I look up to you, and I'm like, if she can do it, I could do it. If she does more of it, I'll do more of it. Maybe sometime. And I'm just, I don't know why I'm doing this. And I mean that from the bar of my heart. I don't mean it.
But are you enjoying it?
Yes, tremendously.
Well, then, do the things that you enjoy and try new things. I have no idea how long I might do media, but I'm really enjoying it. You know what? I also like it when people ask me questions about ag and agronomy, and I'm more of an agriculturalist than I am an agronomist, and I'm happy to talk about those. I answer the phone when North Dakota Department of Health or municipalities call and say, we'd really like you to talk about West Nile and advocate on behalf of spraying for mosquitoes.
And that very much affected your life, I understand.
Absolutely.
You want to talk about that?
In 2012, during wheat harvest.
Now we're going to cry for real.
Well, in 2012, during wheat harvest. So this time of year, my dad was bit by a mosquito. He thought he had the flu. What started in that August wound up in February of 2013. Dad passed away from the West Nile virus. And as a virus, we've all just come through a pandemic with a virus. That virus is different for every person
how your body reacts to it. Yeah.
And I liken it to a portal that opens you up for so many other things. There was a page of symptoms that he went through. But when I get called from communities that say, we have a debate whether or not we should spray, I am happy to be there to give our family's story, to help folks understand this is not just something that affects the elderly. It's not just a public nuisance.
How old was your father when he passed?
58 years old.
It's almost my age here. No, I'm 50, but
let that sink in. At 58 years old, because I'm almost 50 as well.
But you're going to stay 49 for a long time.
Not as long as you think. Only about 12 months. That was an incredibly young age. Dad missed out on at least 3 grandkids so far that he didn't even know about. And I don't think other families should have to go through that. If we can prevent it, that'd be great. Now, he was likely bit out in the field or in a pasture, but let's avoid this situation in communities where we have high populations.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of that, now we're rolling, because I had a client say something to me that caught me off guard. He said, I'm kind of embarrassed for agriculture that a lot of the people that produce this great food in America are terribly out of shape. Mm-hmm. And I noticed recently you had a big health journey. I'd say you're going on year 2.
Yeah, I am.
And you're mentally healthy, physically healthy. But what can you do to advocate or tell your health journey? Or, you know where I'm going with this? You take it away.
So the state of North Dakota doesn't have a gym on every corner. I mean,
I noticed that.
Lord have mercy. Casey's is trying to be on every corner, but not a gym. And we can do things differently. We can make simple choices. We don't have to restrict our calories. We can focus on making sure we get plenty of protein, good fats, do that balance and what works best for you. We don't have to buy special foods. Eat quality and move. Now, it's not easy to do every year during harvest because you sit for long hours, but there's other times of the year. Maybe instead of using the 4-wheeler, we walk a little bit more. Maybe instead of being on one more board, and good Lord, look who's talking about being on one more thing, take the time in your life to walk. and to enjoy what's going on around you. And that's just simple exercise and good mental health right there. I have no problem with that. I'm fortunate enough that through the connections I have made with media and so forth, I have the opportunity to work with National Cattlemen's Association later this year on a mental health initiative during their convention in February. And I'm very excited about that. The opportunity just to give others an ear to listen.
What about if I challenged you and said, it's not easy, how do I say it? It's expensive to eat healthy. It's more affordable to eat carbs and protein. How do we bridge the gap? This is a very large question now.
It is.
But how do we bridge the gap in America between poor, underprivileged people eating intaking calories that would be not, it's expensive to eat well.
It can be. I look at some of the things that are changing in our technology in agriculture is probably the fastest paced that it's ever been. You look at something like Bright Farms, who are taking old Best Buys, turning them into indoor greenhouses, raising things like fresh vegetables, lettuces, some fruits, and then they're doing this on the outskirts of Chicago. So from the time that that product is picked until it's on the shelf in what could be considered a food desert, less than 36 hours. And and that way you're not worried about trucking and shipping expense from the San Joaquin Valley in California. It's right there. Does it give as much variety as you might get at a giant supermarket? Maybe not, but it does provide you with something, some sort of a change. And unfortunately right now, our protein expense is high. It's expensive to buy chicken and so forth. That ties in with our grain markets. That will all change as well. But I do see that even those who have less of an income are doing a better job of asking for, where can I find someone to buy direct from? Can I find someone who's raising chickens in their backyard? And maybe that'll be a little less expensive.
And that was one of the benefits of COVID. So one of the benefits of COVID is people started to ask where their food came from.
I think that's great.
Sourced locally. I've introduced a lot of people into buying a quarter of beef, a half of beef, split halves, even though I have like plenty. Like, want to split a half? And I just say yes. And then
then find a way.
I give some to my parents and friends. I just say, yeah, I'll support it. You know, this is wonderful. And sometimes with the food chain, the problem isn't to find someone who's awesome at raising cattle. The processing is backlogged.
It is, but it's getting better. We have, 2-year schools that are now offering programs in, they call it meat processing, but literally you're coming out a butcher out of that project. We got to this situation in the United States with our supply chain and what we do or don't eat, and it didn't happen overnight. We're not going to fix it overnight either, but we're going to get better.
It's interesting. There's so many ways to. I had no clue. It's called what? Bright
Farms.
And if I Google that, it's right outside where I live in Chicago. I'll have to check that out.
And other major cities is where they've been expanding to. I had the good fortune to be the MC for Cultivate, which is a technology event in Fargo, and I did that about 4 years ago, and they were one of our featured speakers that day was Bright Farms.
One thing I don't think people realize necessarily is what a agricultural technology hub Fargo's becoming. So I live in downtown Fargo. Yeah. In the last 3 months, there's been 750 more units added to downtown Fargo. Apartments, rentals, not necessarily condos. We're a little short on having a condo to buy, but if you want to rent, which is fine, mortgage rates are high, and hey,
you can do it.
Fine.
You can do it.
Yeah, it's booming.
It is
booming in downtown Fargo, and this isn't like so someone moves by me for the week I'm down here a month, like, hey, come move to Fargo.
But Fargo is the second largest Microsoft campus after Redmond, Washington. The amount of technically skilled people in the region is very high. And we have the Aerospace Center at UND, which as an NDSU graduate, I have to choke a little talking about UND, but I will in a positive way. And the reality is that's bringing people here or bringing them in virtually. And we're able to be on the forefront of that when it comes to that rapidly changing technology in ag. I think we're kind of the last frontier to make some of these leaps and bounds.
And in your career in ag, what would you say is the biggest change in technology that has happened? Or you can speculate and say, Tommy, if we're sitting here somewhere in 10 years, you're not going to believe what's coming down the pipe.
I look at the biologicals. For years, we've had the traditional pesticides. That's changing, and it's changing rapidly. We're using more biologicals. We're finding different ways to control some of the pests and weeds that we have in our crop. And we have to, because we can't, if you do the same thing over and over again, it's the definition of insanity. So let's not use some of the products that are, and I've sold them, products that have been on the shelf for 40 years. They still work, but what new way can we use this? I'm fascinated by John Deere bringing out the See and Spray sprayer with cameras, with photo recognition of weeds and a concentrated application. I see some holes in it yet, but I think they're going to come around.
And that's the future?
There's a lot of things that are going to change. And farmers, particularly where you and I are today, aren't going to raise, they're not all going to be corn and bean farmers. There's a multitude of things that they're going to continue to do and find niche markets.
And where we're sitting, for people listening or watching, we're sitting in the Red River Valley in North Dakota, in Mayville, North Dakota. And I would say this dirt is equal to some of Ukraine's best dirt, some of Central Illinois' best dirt. And
this is a lake bed. This is some of the most fertile ground in the world, and it's very productive.
Yeah, I think, and I'll speculate a little bit, as we develop more, we'll grow way more with way less.
Oh, absolutely. We're looking for efficiency per acre.
To not plant a crop in this beautiful ground because there was too much water, maybe we should tile it.
And
maybe we should.
Look at how much tiling has been done in 10 years. It's tremendous. It doesn't matter if you're in the Red River Valley or outside of it. Folks are tiling because they realize how it improves the efficiency of that ground.
I talked to a farmer today, and I said, you've been blessed to accumulate some good ground the last 8 years. If you could do it over again, would you bought a little less and taken that money and put in tile? And he said, yeah. He said, because if you have a section you don't plant, then is it valuable not producing anything? Because in those payments, who knows, what
there's a lot of unrest as far as what's going to happen with the Farm Bill, with midterm elections, with administrations. Every administration is just like bringing in new coaches at a football team. It's going to change. We don't know what it's going to look like. And it's going to get better in some ways. Good Lord, it's all cyclical. I remember in the 80s, everybody told me how I was putting a hole in the ozone layer with my Aquanet. Well, now they're all worried about climate change because I'm, burning wood in a stove in my backyard or in a fire pit. Well, pick one. I mean, every 10 years, there's a new problem. Next 10 years will be something different.
That's interesting. What would you like to, before we end the podcast, because we could go for a long time, but we'll do this again. What would you like to promote? Agronomy on Ice. You can promote yourself. You could do whatever you want. It's open mic night now.
I think that Agronomy on Ice and my brand of who I am as Bridgette Readel are kind of tied together. I have the great fortune of good friends that we've now created, the Ag Mafia, that puts on Agronomy on Ice as a premier outdoor event for farmers and ag industry to get together and do it in a much more casual, relaxed way. And I get the chance to help people make decisions. Excuse me, let me back that up. I provide people solutions, and I do that as myself, as an agriculturalist, as an ag director, but as also part of Ag Mafia, where we get to help train sellers and agronomists and help them improve what they do every day.
That's wonderful. Wonderful. Well, I think we should do this again sometime. We could talk a lot more. We'll probably record some stuff up at Agronomy on Ice, if that works.
We would. Yeah.
And we're going to keep pushing through that uncomfortable level and promoting agriculture.
Book your room for Agronomy on Ice if you haven't.
What's the date?
Going fast. February 1st, 2023.
Let's end it there.
Okay.
Well, thank you, Bridgette.
Thank you.
My name's Tommy Grisafi, and I'm Bullish Agriculture.